Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into week one of the Optimus NFL show. I am your host, Brad Bolt, joined as always by my co-host and good mate, Daniel O'Connell. Dan, how are we, buddy?
Brad, I'm doing good. Obviously, the excitement of week one is here finally. It actually matters now. I was just off topic. I was just vibing along to that new intro music there, so it's getting into it a little bit. But no, week one, it's always exciting when it gets here, and we get like this week we had for us the Thursday night game for us is Friday morning, which is always good. And then even better this year, we get the Friday night game in Brazil, and it's Saturday morning here for us. So, what better way to kick off a weekend than getting to watch some NFL?
Exactly. But also too, apologies if I am sounding a bit funny. I've just literally in the last 12 hours come down with a pretty nasty virus that my kids have passed on to me, so that's been fantastic. So we're going
Been
to power
talking
our
about
way
it,
through because it's week one.
been talking about it for the last week, and it's going to hit you at the worst possible time. And then you message me today, and it's like, yeah, right on the money.
Yeah, right on the money. But we are here talking about football week one. So we're going to go through a new layer of our show where we're going to go through some segments. So we're going to start that off with the news, which is time for the Pigskin Pulse. That's right, Pigskin Pulse. We dive into the news here. Not too much in the way of news that we are going to cover here today, except for the news that came out on, was it Thursday or was it Friday our time, that Amari Cooper has retired. So Amari Cooper went unsigned for the majority of the offseason, signed just a few weeks ago for the Las Vegas Raiders. It looked like he was going to make a comeback, and Amari Cooper has decided to step away from football, which is a bit sad because he was one of these guys who may not have been a household name to a lot of people, but I remember those early Raiders years and then in the Cowboys years, he was a lot of fun to actually watch. So it will be a bit sad not seeing him out on the field. But Dan, give us your thoughts about Amari Cooper retiring.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird situation there, wasn't it? But it seemed to come out of nowhere. He, like you said, he was their free agent pretty much all through the off season, and then signed with the Raiders. And then, yeah, not long after that, he decided he no longer had the love for the game anymore and
Mm,
decided to hang it up. So I don't know if Raiders fans should be reading too much into that. That he got there and thought, oh no, I don't like this. He's going to hang it up
mm,
instead of playing with the Raiders. But you'd hope for their case that's not the
yeah,
case. But no, it was a bit of a weird one. So, like you said, he's that sort of player that he's had some big years, but he's also been
mm,
inconsistent as well. But it was always fun to watch. Really good route runner, really good player, and still only 31, I think he was as well. So I would have thought he had a couple
yeah.
more seasons in him at least. So bit of a shock, but yeah, just if your heart's not in it, your heart's not in it.
It'll be interesting to see too if he's one of these guys who this is a permanent retirement, or it's one of these ones where they think they're done and they have the year off and then all of a sudden they come back. Like you remember, well, I remember Jason Witten. Remember Jason Witten retired? He was
Yeah,
done. Had the year of Monday Night Football, and then he realised he wanted to be back out there. So he jumped back in and played for another season or two. So it'll be interesting to see if Amari Cooper's one of those type of guys where he's gonna miss the after a year or after a few months as a team makes their way towards the playoffs to make a playoff push, whether he's actually going to look at maybe returning or if this is actually done. Because the sad thing is too, his last season that he had in Buffalo was really disappointing. How it
yeah,
turned out. We sort of had high hopes for him with Josh Allen, and it just never really materialized, which was a bit sad and disappointing to see actually. So we hope
yeah.
that.
The whole thing around it was weird, like you said, the way he went to the Bills and just didn't seem to click there with Josh Allen. Didn't seem
Mm,
to, I guess, be the player that he was. So I wonder if that had a major effect on him with his confidence, maybe, and just thought he didn't have it anymore.
yeah, I wonder too if it was because he was a mid-season. He was a trade deadline acquisition by them, wasn't he?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I wonder if his slow season with Buffalo was to do with the fact that he wasn't there for the start of the year, so he didn't really get a chance to build too much of a connection with Josh Allen, and sort of was an afterthought in that offense a little bit at times.
Yeah, but no, he's going to be missed around the league, I think. There's always someone you could sort of rely on for some big weeks out of him. So unfortunate that he's decided to retire just before the season, especially for the Raiders. But I guess a big part of why they might have brought him in at the time was Jacoby Myers asking for the trade request as well.
Mm,
And
yeah,
they obviously pushed back on that and said no. So maybe they were just seeing worst case scenario with Jacoby Myers if he held out. They had a Murray Cooper there.
yeah.
So, I mean, they would have liked to have him obviously this season as an extra weapon, but I don't know if it sort of moves the needle so much for them at this point.
No. Before we move on to the next segment, I forgot to actually do this in the intro, guys. We've got our new YouTube channel, our Optimus NFL YouTube channel. So if you are there, please go ahead, like and subscribe, as the video is showing right there, and you will see all the content that is coming out for us throughout this season. So we've now done that. We are now going to get into, Dan mentioned it in the intro, talking about the top games that we were able to watch. So we're going to go and discuss those couple in our segment, the Red Zone Rewind. Red Zone Rewind here. We're going to take it back to game one of the NFL season. And God, what an interesting first 3.5 to 5 minutes of that game. So the Eagles, so we'll just go through it. We'll get to it. We'll just read a couple little bits and pieces here. So Eagles end up beating the Cowboys 24-20. For the Cowboys, we had Dak was 21 of 34 for 188 yards. We had Javonte Williams, 15 carries, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. We had Miles Sanders, who had 4 carries for 53 yards, but a costly fumble. CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches, 110 yards, and it's gone down as 4 drops. The third one wasn't a drop. That was just that was an attempt at a catch, not a drop. So, but it's classified as a drop. So there's that. But CD's going to obviously be very disappointed with how that game panned out. George Pickens in his debut, 3 catches for 30 yards. What was that?
Oh, just not a good start for him with that many drops, especially, but putting up massive numbers still.
Yeah, and he looked incredible. We were talking about it as the game was going, that CD just looked unstoppable. It was pretty insane to see. And then we have Jake Ferguson there, 5 catches for 23 yards. So, Dan, do you want to go through the Eagles stat lines and give us and then we'll talk about the game and what happened in the first 5 minutes afterwards?
Yeah, it was a funny game, this one. Neither side really got into their rhythm, it felt like. It just, obviously, the very first game, week one, it's always hard to predict how teams will come out, but it just didn't seem like either team were on their game, and we'll get into it in a minute. But it might have been with everything that happened before it even started. Might have just thrown players off a little bit, but Jalen Hurts, quiet game through the air, 19 of 23, 152 yards, no touchdowns. He basically just took what the defense gave him. He didn't try and do too much in the passing game. And then 14 carries on the ground. So I think that sort of outlines the sort of game that it was. He was, again, just taking what was in front of him. So 62 yards. He had the 2 touchdowns there. So it was a good game by him overall. Saquon Barkley, I expected him to go absolutely nuts this game, but the Cowboys actually controlled him fairly well for the most part. He had 18 carries, 60 yards, had the touchdown on the game, and then 4 catches, 24 yards. But again, the Cowboys keeping him to 60 yards, that's a hell of an effort against one of the top 5 running backs in the league, probably top 2.
Yeah.
So all the talk about the Cowboys not having a run defense, tell you what, Kenny Clark must have made that much of a difference then.
Yeah. He actually played really well. He did really well. He was there, he was noticeable, but that's sort of what you're expecting from Kenny Clark, was to play like that.
And he looks like he's healthy, where last year he wasn't healthy. So it's good to see him healthy, good to see him have a good game there to start off with. So as a Packers fan, I'll always have love for Kenny Clark. So good to see him play well. The receiving side of things for the Eagles was super interesting because Jahan Dotson had 3 catches, 59 yards. He had that one big catch
Mm,
early on or in the middle of the game. Dallas Goedert, 7 catches. So he was a main focal point for them, just 44 yards. So it was just those little quick hits and that sort of thing,
yeah,
quick hits and that, just to get him the ball, just keep the chains moving. The big thing was Devontae Smith, 3 catches, 16 yards. AJ Brown had 1 target, I think it was, for 1 catch, 8
yeah.
yards. Like,
And that came with about 90 seconds left on the clock too. So
yeah,
he had no targets at all until the last 90 seconds of the game on a 2nd and 11, and he had an 8-yard catch to get it to a 3rd and 3, and then Jalen Hurts has the run for 3 yards to get him the first down so they could then honest the clock and win the game.
yeah. Just, yeah, one of those weird games where we've seen it happen occasionally before where AJ Brown's not targeted much, but I don't think we've ever seen it like this since he's been in
No.
Philly and even at Tennessee. So, yeah, it's something to watch there, especially moving forward to next week. We could see a massive spike for targets for him, make it a focal point. But again, the Eagles will spread it around and they're going to take what they get in front of them. They're not going to sort of force the issue too much and get Jalen Hurts turning the ball over and that sort of thing. So
Mm.
I guess if they're winning, AJ Brown can sit on the sideline and read his book and his notes on the sideline and just, yeah, try and stay calm and know the ball will come to him eventually. But we'll see how it plays out there. You know what wide receivers are like, especially your alpha wide receivers when they don't get the ball. So winning
Mm.
cures all. At the minute they start dropping a game or two, then, yeah, will be very interesting to watch now. But Jalen Hurts did what he needed to do, and he kept that Cowboys
Gotta
defense off,
give
kept the offense
Yeah,
off.
we've also got to give props to Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland for how they played those two guys because they were just all over them all night, and it's just one of those things. That's where you have to end up with a Dallas Goddard 7 catches for only 44 yards because of how well those two corners were playing. So it'll be good for the Cowboys to have if those two guys are able to keep that up for the rest of the season. But obviously the thing that was the most talked about is the game that has been titled Spitgate. So if anyone hasn't seen it or they've forgotten about it, so opening kickoff and one of the Philadelphia Eagles guys goes down with a knee injury, and they're waiting for the cart to come and bring him out, come out to take him off. And next thing you know, you see the little flag notification pop up on the screen, and you hear Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico sort of go, "Oh, well, we'll see what this flag's about." And then you hear unsportsmanlike conduct, number 98 defense for Philadelphia. His actions have led him to be disqualified. And then everyone starts going, "What has happened? Not a snap hasn't happened yet." So they go to the film, and you see Jalen Carter and Dak Prescott talking, and then all of a sudden you see the spit come flying out of Jalen Carter's mouth, and he spits on Dak Prescott right in front of the referee. So, you see the thing then that happened is the game plays on. So Jalen Carter gets ejected before a snaps even happen. The most pivotal member of their defense, Jalen Carter. So he's gone. And then we have the gameplay. There's into the third quarter, there's a lightning warning that sends all the players off the field, and there's an hour, just over an hour delay before they get back out and start playing. As soon as they start again, there's oh, by the way, we found the footage of how this whole thing started, and it comes out, and Dak's in the middle of his huddle talking to his offensive lineman. He then steps through, spits towards Jalen Carter, but on the ground, and then Jalen Carter spits in Dak's face pretty much. So it's one of those things. If you're one of the leaders of that team, that defense, you cannot be doing that, regardless of if what Dak's done with it. He didn't spit on Jalen Carter; it was on the ground, sort of in his general direction. And I think he even said after the game he was spitting down onto the ground because he had, that's all he was doing. But yeah, it very, very, very undisciplined by Jalen Carter. But Yeah, give us your thoughts about how this whole thing just went down because this was absolutely chaotic. I've never seen this in an NFL game where someone's been thrown out before a single snap has happened.
Yeah, I can't not for spitting. I can't recall it ever being for spitting. I can recall probably something with fighting beforehand. Like we always saw back in the day with massive brawls before kickoff and that sort of thing. I
Mm,
could picture someone getting kicked out for that. I just can't think of anyone off the top of my head. But to find out and to see the footage of Jalen Carter spitting at the chest of Dak Prescott, damn near would have got him in the mouth. Like you can't do that. Like you have to understand that you cannot spit on someone. Like,
mm,
come on, what are we doing? And then to do it, obviously on the field, you know the refs are going to be right there. And then
mm,
the way he's walking off and he's smiling and laughing about it and shaking his head. It's like, dude, come on. Like, you've just spat on someone, you've been ejected from the game, and you're laughing about
mm,
it. Like, pull your head in, stop being a clown. You've let your team down. Luckily, luckily it didn't cost the Eagles a game because defensively they looked out of sorts. And Jalen
mm.
Carter's a massive piece of that middle of the defense there. So their whole game plan on defense changed after that. And it changed the way
Yeah,
Dallas played as well. We saw Javonte Williams with a couple of big runs for touchdowns. He he looked really good, Javonte Williams, just as a side note. We haven't seen him
yeah,
look
he
like that
did.
for a long time, probably since his college days, to be honest. So that's something to watch for Dallas moving forward with all the talk about not having a running back. But yeah, getting back to Jalen Carter, you just you can't do that. And I haven't heard anything yet, but I'd be interested to see if he cops a suspension for that
So,
because
I'm just looking here. Sorry, Ian Rappaport, I think it was, said it's it's not a given, but it doesn't seem like he will get any additional punishment from that. It just seems like it
right,
was the ejection and that's it. But that's not a guarantee.
yeah,
It could
yeah,
change.
yeah. I don't know. You hate to sort of I guess stereotype players, but with the history that Jalen Carter has, he's treading a very fine line.
Yeah,
And for me, if he escapes without copping at least a 1 week suspension, I'll be completely shocked, to be honest. So yeah, it's
yeah.
something to keep an eye on this week to watch, but just absolute stupidity. Can't be doing it. I understand Dak also in the wrong. Just he knew what he was doing, antagonising the way he was afterwards as well. But there's a big difference between spitting on the ground in the vicinity of someone and full blown
Yeah.
spitting on in the chest. Like it just it can't happen. Dak criticize all you want. He deserves all the criticism as well. But yeah, you cannot retaliate like that.
No, and the crazy thing with this game is that it was so high scoring and every drive, I'll read something out to you in a minute, which was just how crazy this game was. Right up until Sanders fumbled. And then once the fumble happened, then we had the rain delay, the lightning delay, I should say, and then not a single point was scored after that. So this is how the game went. I've got it here. This is drive by drive, which is just hilarious. So it went touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, field goal, fumble, rain delay or weather delay. Then when they came back out, it went punt, 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 downs, kneel downs. That was the end of the game. So
So
that's how the game went.
when the delay came about, I was annoyed because I knew I wasn't going to get to see the end of the game before I had to go to work. So I'm like, oh right, I'll try and keep track of it while I'm working and see what happens. I'm sitting there and you see the final score and it's 24-20. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I didn't miss anything. Sweet. Thanks, guys. I was so annoyed about the weather delay thing and I was going to miss a hell of a finish to the game. And obviously, like you said, it was exciting back and forth. And then, yeah, just nothing.
But the crazy thing too was that I had a I had a boost on a bet that came through that was on the over of 48.5. So when I'm sitting there looking at when that weather delay happened, I was like, oh well, it's 44. That's like they're going to come back out. The way these teams have been marching up and down the field,
Yeah, lock it in.
before the end of the third quarter, I'll have it covered. Like I'll win the bet. I'll be happy. And as you said, the end of the game's up, and I went, yeah,
Just yeah,
it's just insane.
yeah,
Like,
just
uh,
week one. Always something weird going on in week one.
it is. I was impressed by the Cowboys and how they played all around. So they're going to be interesting to see if this was just like you said. It was a weird week one type of game where you see, because we remember back to last year. Remember the New Orleans Saints last year? Their first two games scored over 40 in their first two games, and then they ended up with one of the worst records in the league, sort of thing. After that, so um, granted there was injuries, etc., etc. But you know what I mean. Like it was one of those things. There's always some of those weird games that happen week one. So it'll be interesting with this one whether this was a weird week one game or if this is who the Cowboys actually are. They're just going to play teams tough and gritty, and they're going to be a hard team to play again.
Yeah, and as much criticism as he cops for his play a lot of the time, a healthy Dak Prescott makes such a massive difference. Like he's a really good quarterback, and when he's healthy, he
Mm,
can do a lot of things. And I know the stats for him don't look like much this game, but he made some really good throws. And like we talk about the drops, but he played really well this game. It just the stats don't match it, but back it up, which is
yeah,
why the box score watching is always a bad thing to do because you don't understand how it works. But I think I messaged you during the game in the first half. I said CD Lamb could lead the league in receptions this year.
mm,
They're just going to feed him nonstop. And George Pickens is there, but he's not always a big like target monster. He'll make his
yeah.
big play, especially with CD Lamb getting all the coverage. But yeah, CD Lamb, I wouldn't be surprised if he averages 7, 8 catches a game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too to see how George Pickens reacts if that type of target share continues for the rest of the season. Just yeah, we shall see. We probably went a little bit long there in the Cowboys Eagles, so we'll just quickly dip into the Chargers Chiefs. So Chargers pull out the win, 27-21 against the Chiefs. Justin Herbert was incredible today. He was 25 of 34 for 318 yards with 3 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 7 times for 32 yards. Marion Hampton, the rookie, had 15 carries for 48 yards. Nothing spectacular, but he was solid. It was a good debut. Quentin Johnston, the man who a lot of people, when we saw, had bricks for hands and couldn't catch, had 5 catches for 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lad McConkey, 6 catches for 74 yards. Keenan Allen, 7 for 68 yards and a touchdown. From the Chiefs side, there wasn't a lot to write home about with a lot of the Chiefs. Travis Kelce had, was it 2 catches in the end for Travis Kelce and 40 odd yards with a touchdown. But
Touchdown there.
his biggest contribution to the game was on the third play of the game. Was him and Xavier Worthy were on a crossing route and smashed into each other, and Xavier Worthy came off second best and was ruled out for the rest of the game. So 3 plays in, both Dan and I messaged each other and said our best bet for the week last week was having Xavier Worthy involved in it, and that play was ruined 3 plays in. But I think the story out of this game was, well, a couple of things. Justin Herbert, if this is the type of play that Justin Herbert's all year, he's definitely MVP contention at the end of the season.
Yep.
Secondly, there is plenty of football to go around for Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen in this. And you could even see today, Keenan Allen, a lot of people were worried about Keenan Allen, how that was going to work out after his year that he had with Chicago and what was going to happen coming back. But it's clear to see that he is still one of Justin Herbert's favourite targets. So he will get peppered with the ball a lot this season. So he looked really good. And I think between him and Ladd, they've got a really good connection with Justin Herbert. And Quentin Johnson had probably, I would say, it'd be his breakout game for since he's been in the NFL. It was the best I've seen him play.
Yeah. Yeah, he was really good. Obviously, the stats back it up with 2 touchdowns there, but he
Mm,
just was plays. I think there was a catch there where it was third down. I thought he got the first down, to be honest, but it was right there. He probably ran sideways too much on that catch, but it just shows the confidence that Justin Herbert has in him to target him there on big third down. So that's a
yeah.
confidence boost for Quentin Johnson as well. So it's good to see that. But yeah, like you said with Herbert, that was an MVP type game. He had
Mm,
that rush in the fourth quarter where it sealed the game, where it was on 3rd and 13, I think it was, and he picked
yeah.
up the first down with his legs, and that was basically the end of the game. Then they just kneeled on it. So he looked really comfortable, really good there. I love Justin Herbert. I like watching him play.
Mm,
He's erratic, sort of at the worst possible times a lot of the time, it seems. But yeah, coming off the season that he had last year until that playoff game, to then come out week one against the Chiefs, who they've still got an incredible defense, and for him to put up the game that he had, I'm excited to see how he goes the rest of the year now, to see what sort of,
mm,
I guess, the stats that he puts up, but more importantly, the confidence that he has in the games when they're close and be able to pull them out and hold on. Because when I was watching the game today, I was thinking, okay, it's close. It's against the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. This is a big moment for Justin Herbert. Can he get them a first down to ice the game? Or is he going to give the ball back to the Chiefs and then we know what Patrick Mahomes can do? But he just didn't give the ball back. So, yeah, massive from him. Murray and Hampton, like you said, nothing special there. He was running into his offensive line a lot. But again, this is the Chiefs' defense. I don't think we need to read too much into his game there. He'll be
mm,
better next week and moving forward as well. So I think
yeah.
there was a bit of criticism around him on social media now. I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on that and just let him go and develop
Mm,
the next couple of weeks and be comfortable there against different defenses as well. And I think if they can get Najee Harris in a little bit more as well, they can both work off each other there. So just something to keep an eye on moving forward. But I think the biggest thing that affected the Chiefs obviously was Xavier Worthy going out early. That completely changes the way they play. And they didn't have
yeah.
Rasheed Rice already, obviously, with the suspension. So losing Xavier Worthy, probably the worst thing that could have happened for them. But we see Hollywood Brown step up and have 10 catches for 9,900 yards.
Mm,
So good to see him be able to step up in a big moment there. But yeah, I think this was a tough one for the Chiefs because they just looked off for most of the game. They just didn't look in sync. But it's the Chiefs. We know they'll fix that pretty
yeah.
quick. Mahomes
And
made
it's
normal big plays.
yeah. Well, it was. I was just going to say too, like when you're starting the season and you're banking on your two main receivers to be Rasheed Rice, Xavier Worthy, with a Hollywood. I'm calling him Marquise until he has consistency in his game. He doesn't get
Yeah,
Hollywood from me. He's Marquise. But when you've got him as your third option as a receiver, that's sort of what you're after. But now going into week two, he's potentially going to be number one. Juju Smith Schuster is going to be number two, and Tyquan Thornton is looking at being the third option. Now, Tyquan, I said to you, now, the reason why I said this during the game, I said he's going to be like a poor man's Jameson Williams because I can see the way that Andy Reid structures his offense is these guys when they've had him in. Like you always look when Nicole Hardman was out there playing, he would always at least once or twice a game try and dial something up for Nicole Hardman every game. It was just how it was. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. That could be just a long shot, or it could be a swing pass behind the line of scrimmage and use your speed to run past everyone. So I think that's what they were obviously planning to do with Xavier Worthy, get him some, some jet sweeps, some bit of everything. And I think Tyquan Thornton might step into that type of role and get that few targets a game. And it's going to be one of those things where he's either going to be getting two catches for 46 yards, sort of like what he did today, or he's going to be zero catches, zero targets, maybe one carry for -2 yards, and that's sort of what you sort of got to live with. Like I think that's what I was meaning to you when I was saying that he's going to be like a poor man's Jameson Williams in that sense. Is that
yeah,
sort of what they're going to be looking to use him for? But you're right, the whole Chiefs as a vibe were just way off too. Like you said, at one stage they were I think I heard the stat say they were 0 for 5 on third down conversions, but they were 2 for 2 on fourth down conversions. So,
yeah,
it was just a weird game by the Chiefs all around. But as you just quickly too, as you said, like with Amari and Hampton, um, what do we say, 15 carries for 48 yards. It's a big difference going from North Carolina when you're playing Boston College to then going to the NFL where you're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, who's one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinator in the NFL. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, agree. Like, pump the brakes on the criticism. He is going to work his way into this season, and how much they already sort of trust him. Like, I didn't even realize for a while that Najee Harris was even playing. Like, I knew he
Yeah.
wasn't on the injured list. I honestly, for a moment, thought that he was like a healthy scratch because he was just not there for a long
Yeah.
time.
Didn't seem like they wanted to play Najee with everything through the preseason there with his eye injury and obviously
Mm,
not being field much. So, yeah, they did need to run the ball a heap and probably realised they couldn't. And so it wasn't part of the game plan. So we'll see if they both have more carries next week and moving forward. But without going too crazy, something to just watch that's happened for the last sort of 18 months now. Like Patrick Mahomes is an absolute superstar. There's no two ways around it. He's
mm,
well within the rights of being a future conversation for GOAT status. But we're watching Patrick Mahomes not be as explosive as he was early in his career. Obviously, you
mm,
lose someone like Tyreek Hill, you're not going to have those massive explosive plays consistently.
mm,
But the way he's been playing lately, like the last 18 months, he's not looked obviously the way he did when he was superstar dynasty quarterback. He's still obviously one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's number one quarterback in the league currently, outside of what he can do in big moments.
yeah,
He's changed the way he plays a lot at the moment, and he's doing a lot of dink and dunk sort of thing as well with the way he plays. But then he comes out and I think it was that pass, I think it was to Juju, where he was falling over. He was horizontal to the ground basically, and he's just sort of
and flip
flopped
over the lineman.
this
Yeah,
little basketball flop over the top of the defensive player there. And it's just like you watch him do stuff like that. And we've seen players do that in the past as well. As a Packers fan, I used to watch Brett Favre do that sort of thing all the time. But Patrick Mahomes, does it in the biggest moments within a game. It's
yeah,
just it's interesting to watch the way he's playing lately because they lost this game. They looked out of sync, but come the end of the year, they're expected to be right in the Super Bowl hunt again. So he can win in so many ways, but it's just yeah, it's not always. He used to make it look easy, kind of thing, every single game, and it's not looking that way for him lately, which is just interesting to keep an eye on as well. Like, yeah, it's just something you notice each game. He just looks out of sync a lot of the time, and then he makes some stupid play that you think no one else can make.
yeah. And the way that teams now play the Chiefs by making sure they have those two high safeties to try and keep everything in front of them has almost turned Patrick Mahomes into sort of like a game manager with the way defenses are playing him and just trying to dink and dunk down the field. So you're right. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. So now that that's the recap done, we're going to get into some of our games that we want to watch and we're going to look into. So previously when we did this, Dan and I would go through every single game. We're not going to be doing that this year. We're just going to pick out a few games here and there that we want to keep an eye on for specific reasons. So that is in our new segment, the keys to kickoff. So first one here in the keys to kickoff, Dan, I'll get you to run through everything here. It's the Detroit Lions at your Green Bay Packers. So give us a bit of a rundown as to what you're after here and overrunners, all that sort of stuff that you've got.
So, Packers at home, week one, exciting times. Obviously, we know the Michael Parsons trade coming in. The Packers are $1.78 favourites, which even as a fan, I'm shocked at that line. Like that's pretty crazy to
It's
be.
got to be because they're at home. That would be the only reason. I think if it was in
Yeah,
Detroit, it'd have to be the other way around.
I think obviously the markets are looking. Lions lost the coordinators. I guess they need to see they're still going to be the same team. But after last year, the Lions swept us both games to be $1.78 favourites. I'm pretty surprised at that, actually, but I'll take it. Lions at $2.09. If you're not a Packers fan, that's pretty juicy odds.
Mm,
I'm
mm.
touching that because I can't do it to myself. But yeah, $2.09 is pretty juicy for the Lions. The over-under, obviously expecting a lot of points this game, as it usually is, 47.5. Not at all surprised if that's going over. There's like a 31-27 type game, I think. So, yeah, I don't think that line's big enough. Packers -1.5 on the line. Lions +1.5. I don't think it's going to be a 1-point game. It's just a field goal would probably be the closest, but we shall see. So I don't think you get too much value there, unless you're pretty confident on who's actually going to win this game. But yeah, Packers $1.78 favorites. I'm not wanting to touch that to get too confident.
No, I mean the Lions at $2.09 is interesting, but I think my thing that I'm going to be interested about, and this might have something to do with it, is obviously the big trade of Micah Parsons and how much he's actually going to play, what his snap count's going to be. So he has said that he is looking at, well, he's going to leave it up to the coaches. That was the word that I saw last. He was going to leave it up to the coaching staff if he plays. I think with what Green Bay has, like, I think they've got a above average defense, and that's not derogatory. That's in the landscape of how NFL defenses are, they've got an above average defense. But Micah Parsons is that guy who takes it from above average to good to great. That's how I sort of look at it. So, will he have much of an impact out there, or are they just going to maybe, hey, look, maybe we'll take it easy. Week 1, you've got Detroit. Let's do the whole mind games and let's leave him for later in the season. Are they going to do that, or we just want to make sure that he is back to full health before we get him back out there? So, yeah, Micah and his snap count is going to be the main thing that I will be paying attention to in this game.
Yeah, I'd expect him to be out there for anywhere between sort of 30 and 40 plays, absolute max. I think put him out there on passing downs and just let him get after the quarterback. But you don't really want to overplay him too much, especially on the sort of what you'd expect to be running downs. Although we do need his speed on the field to try and keep Jahmyr Gibbs in containment. But yeah, I'm not expecting him to be out there too much this week. They'll look to ramp him up during the week for next week in week 2. But whatever we can get out of him, and if he can get to the quarterback, then happy days. Like, yeah, just get him out there when you need him to. We've got other players that can sort of affect that defense and rush the passer and put a bit of pressure on. So I don't think I want to put too much pressure on Micah's shoulders to come in and be that game changer straight away.
How's Jordan Love going health-wise? Is he, like, I haven't paid as much attention to the Packers in this offseason and leading up, but how is his health? Is he coming along all right, or is he a bit behind?
No, he obviously would have been held out of practice a little bit the last couple of weeks, just let him heal with that thumb injury, but he'll be good to go. I don't think there'll be no sort of, I guess, holding him back once the game starts. He should have full health, be able to do everything that he needs to do. And I think the most important thing that I want to look at with him this year is him using his legs more when he needs to, which we know he can do. He's athletic enough. But last year, he obviously had that injury in week 1 against the Eagles in Brazil, that knee injury, and that affected him for the whole year. He was never 100% healthy after that. Whereas coming into this year, yeah, he had the little thumb injury, but outside of that, 100% health. I'm expecting him, or I'm hoping that he can use his legs more in big moments, because there was so many times last year you're watching it and you just take off with the ball and pick up a first down.
Yeah.
But he didn't he was hesitant to do it, and whether that's just in his mind, his knee, his health, not wanting to do it, or just wanting to look for that big play that we know that's the sort of quarterback he is, good or bad, depending which way you want to look at it. But he looks for that big play in the passing game. I want him to, I guess, look for those running lanes as well when he needs to, when it's breaking down a little bit, and take off and just pick up what you can. So that's something I'll be keeping an eye on this year. And yeah, his health will be the major factor for that.
So, last question for you. Who are your X factors in this game on both sides of both teams? So one for the Lions, one for the Packers. Who are you looking at are going to maybe dictate the outcome of this game for these teams either way?
I'll start with the Lions, and the X factor for them, outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, because we just know what he can do. We've got to key in on him the entire game. But you spoke about him earlier. Jamison Williams scares the absolute hell out of me every time we go up against him, because he can just take the top off. And we've got, I will sound like a homer, I think we have the at least top two safety duo in the league, because I think Evan Williams is about to be an absolute star. And Xavier McKinney is already a star. Could be one of the top two safeties in the league. Outside of those two in the defensive backfield, our cornerbacks obviously are big question marks at the moment. But we played without Jair Alexander a heap over the last 2 years. Our cornerbacks, they're not flashy. They don't make big plays all the time, but they're solid. This is going to really test them. Obviously, we know what Amon-Ra St. Brown is. He's not going to beat him over the top, though. Jamison Williams is the one that can just explode and change the game in an instant. So for me, being able to contain him in that deep game, that's the X factor for me. For the Packers, I think it's going to be Rashawn Gary. And we spoke about Micah not playing a heap this game, but when he's on the field, Rashawn Gary's not getting doubled anymore, and the focus is going to be solely on him. So he's going to get a lot of one-on-ones on his side, and he needs to take advantage of that. We've had back and forths about him as a pass rusher a lot over the years, and he needs to be better in that aspect of his game, even though it's not solely what he's focused on and what he's known for. I'd like to see him reach double-digit sacks this year, because I know he can do it. He's just been stuck 7.5 sacks each season. But having Micah there, I'll be interested to see the impact it has on Rashawn Gary. So he's my X factor, getting after Jared Goff, making a couple of big plays there. And he's one of the best edges against the run in the league. So needing him to keep Jahmyr Gibbs under control as well.
Yeah, no, I like all of that. So we now move on to here my team, the Carolina Panthers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Panthers are underdogs here at $2.65 to the Jags $1.51. Now I would like to know why it's such a huge discrepancy when you look at that. Jacksonville actually finished. What was Jacksonville's record last year? Do you know off the top of your head?
Jesus, testing me. I don't know. I don't think. Did they have like 5 wins?
Let me see. I think it might have only been that.
Yeah.
What did they finish last season?
Yeah, I looked at those.
So they finished 4-13.
So they had
4 and
four.
13 is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were 4-13, and they had the 5th pick in the draft, which then they traded up to number 2 to select Travis Hunter. And Carolina last year finished the season, was it 5-12? So they had one more win. But when you also look at it at that end, now this is probably going to sound like me being a homer, but when you look at how that season ended last year for Carolina, where is it here? So they got Chiefs, they lose on a last-second field goal to the Kansas City Chiefs, 30-27. They then lose to the Buccaneers in overtime, 26-23. They then lose to the Philadelphia Eagles 22-16, and that should have been at least going in front because Xavier Legette ended up dropping that catch right in the end zone or at the 1 yard line. So there was a chance there. They then lose by 2 touchdowns to the Cowboys. They beat the Cardinals in overtime. They got thumped by the Buccaneers the second time, which was a horrible game. But then they beat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime 44-38. So when you look at that, Carolina with Bryce coming back in they actually played better than what Jacksonville did. Now I know that Jacksonville obviously had people out, Trevor Lawrence, all that sort of stuff, but yeah, it was just interesting that it was such a big line. Not from this as a homer, but from as a actual looking at this, I don't see why it's such a huge discrepancy, and I don't mind Carolina as an underdog in this game. Just saying,
I have
the
to
over
check.
under for this. Sorry,
No,
I'll
you
just
can
finish this quickly.
check.
Over under is 46.5. The Jags are minus 3.5 point favorites over the Panthers. The Panthers are plus 3.5. So I would also be looking at taking that and the points there myself. So I'll give you a little bit of a get your thoughts on it before I dive into this game.
So I just wanted to check because we do the tipping ESPN footy tips here, the tipping competition. And I wanted to check because I had a feeling I actually picked the Panthers this game, but I didn't.
Mm,
But that's not because I think Jacksonville are just a lock to win, like the odds seem to dictate.
mm.
I looked at Panthers $2.65, and I thought that was absolutely insane. Like
Yeah,
this, to me, this should almost be a 50-50 push
yeah,
because the Panthers, Bryce Young looked really good late last year. You would think over the off-season he's going to continue to develop that and he's not going to be the Bryce Young we saw to start the year, I wouldn't imagine.
mm,
But $2.65, like the Panthers aren't that much worse than the Jaguars. And I can't imagine that the impact of Liam Cohen coming in as coach and the impact of Travis Hunter being drafted number 2 is going to push the Jaguars to be that much of a favourite. Like, just
mm.
to me, it makes no sense at all.
So it looks like too that Travis Hunter's going to be the starting wide receiver opposite Brian Thomas, and then he's going to be like second string cornerback. So that's sort of what it looks like. That he's going to be more playing wide receiver sprinkled in on defense than anything, than playing like full time both ways. So that's going to be interesting. But you're right, sort of with the now I know that they're probably also reverting back to last year. Carolina had the worst defense or gave up the most points in the history of the NFL. But you sort of look at what they did this year. Part of it, they get Derek Brown back. Derek Brown played the first game of the season last year and then was injured, missed the whole season. Now, the year before, was Pro Bowler, I think, a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. But he was in that sort of, and he set the record for most tackles by a defensive tackle ever in the history of the NFL with like 106 or something like that. I think it was off the top of my head. So they get him. Then they bring in and also for half the season last year, one of their pass rushers they signed in the offseason was DJ One. He missed half the season. So he's had an healthy off season. So he's there. They sign Patrick Jones. They bring in Tacone Wharton, Bobby Brown the third. So they've solidified that defensive line. So now on that defensive line, Ashawn Robinson is like a second string defensive tackle where he was the lead defensive tackle last year because of Derek Brown being out. So you get that. Then you look at they bring in Patrick Jones from Minnesota as well, and then drafting Nick Scotton and Princely Umanmielen. Now, Princely may not play as much because he did have a collapsed lung during the training camp, but it does appear he is sort of healthy, so hoping he's out there. But I know that the defense still is not fantastic for Carolina, but they made some improvements, so they shouldn't be the worst defense in the history of the NFL anymore. And like you said, Bryce last year, how he after his benching and then his fortunate to get back into the lineup because of the Andy Dalton car crash that he then came back, he looked like a completely different person, and now he's got there's certain things. I don't know. Did you watch the first preseason game that the Panthers played where they were playing Shador and the Browns?
No. Oh, I would have seen
Yeah.
like highlights of it, sort of thing, but didn't
He
watch
had
all.
one of these. He had one of these in like you looked at this pass that he had. It ended up being dropped by Tedero McMillan in the end zone. But he had one of these passes where you were like, "Oh, okay, I see now why you went first overall." So he dropped back. Tedero was running his route, and Bryce Young threw the ball before while Tet was making his break to the outside to then cut back in on the inside on the slant. As he did that, he sort of turned his eyes to look at the ball, and it was already right there. And if Tataroa had seen it, it was a catch, it was a touchdown. It was one of those things where you watch it and you're like, that's the anticipation that Bryce needs. And that's the reason why he went number one overall. Throws like that would just like set him apart, his elite like processing and anticipation. So team is a little bit different compared to what they had last year. But the biggest difference is having, I've mentioned him now, Tedero McMillan, a true alpha wide receiver one that's going to make massive difference to Bryce this season.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this makes no sense to me at all. I can't touch the Jags at that price in this game. I just have no confidence in them like that. But
Mm.
it's going to be an interesting one to watch to see how Bryce is developing, how he connects with Tedero and McMillan as well. So this actually, you wouldn't think it, especially after last year, but this is actually an exciting game to watch to see how it plays out.
Mm. But it's exciting too. Everyone wants to see the Travis Hunter experiment, like to see the guy play both ways. But one of his worst games that he had in college, I reckon that was against Arizona, and Tedero McMillan, absolutely dominated in the game. Like it's not like I doubt that he's going to be doing one of those things where he's going to be out there and shadowing McMillan the entire time. But it's going to be interesting for me to see the loss of obviously Adam Thielen because the plan was to have Jalen Coker step into that role for how he has looked and his connection with Bryce. Now he's obviously gone on the IR and Carolina signed Hunter Renfro to put in that place. But
He's
the
looked
one
good
thing it does, yeah,
He's looked solid, yeah.
the one thing too that it's done though as well is week one of last season, the Panthers wide receivers were Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, and Jonathan Mingo. Now, Mingo was traded mid-season to the Cowboys for a fourth-round pick, but Xavier Legette was sort of thrust into that 1A, 1B sort of role with Adam Thielen, and that's not his true sort of spot. Like, so now, with McMillan there, Tetaroa is wide receiver one. Legette sort of slots into that wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3 spot with Hunter Renfro, depending on how they're going. Then you've also got a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of him, but David Moore is a Dave Canales guy who had a pretty decent connection at times with Bryce last year. He just sort of popped up when he was out there. They then have Bryson Tremaine is also another wide receiver who's shone pretty well in the offseason. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. is sort of last on the list. But compared to what Carolina had the year before, it's night and day, that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So, look, I am keen to see Travis Hunter, but I thought that was insane, that type of
Yeah, it's
odds
nowhere.
with
Should
Carolina.
not be that much of a discrepancy between the two.
Mm,
Just crazy the way it works out.
yeah. But it is going to be interesting, Liam Cohen's effect on Trevor Lawrence and how the Jags play.
That's
Also, I'm going to be intrigued as well on how that running back room for Jacksonville plays out.
yeah.
The Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Bashal Tootin, how that's all sort of going to work out. So that'll be another thing to look at. Carolina don't really have that issue with Chuba Hubbard and then Rico Dowdle are their number 1 and 2. So,
I reckon
really, a
Dowd
lot of
was a
people.
1,000-yard runner.
Well, I was about to say that he went for 1,000 yards last year, and Carolina last year before Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL again, signed Chuba Hubbard to a 4-year extension for pretty decent money. So, don't be shocked if they run the absolute bejesus out of the ball in this game too.
Yep. No, they should be right in this one, I think. I don't expect them to get blown out. So it's anyone's game. That the odds obviously not showing that, but to me, it's anyone's game.
Yeah. We've got a couple more games before we hit the Sunday night, Monday night football games. So these ones we won't go into as much detail of, but these were just some that stood out to. Dan's got one here and I've got one afterwards. So Dan, can you give me why this next game, 49ers at Seattle, stood out for you?
Yeah, divisional game. It's always good fun to watch these two go against each other. There's so much to look at for the 49ers. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is injured, not playing for however many weeks this season. Could be mid-season before he gets back and looking like his old self. But a few days ago, CMC popped up, shock horror, popped up on the injury report with a calf injury, which obviously you never like to see that with him because you always just think the worst, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
it looks like he's going to be okay and pretty much have his full workload in week one, but it is something to monitor because we've seen him get injured a lot during games, and that shifts this 49ers team massively, the way they play. So I'm excited to see this Seattle defense go up against the 49ers. Brock Purdy, I like him. He cops so much criticism and he gets, I think he's a media darling sort of thing. He got overhyped a lot early on in his career. But it's the same with Dak. They're just really good quarterbacks. And
Mm.
having him out there healthy, he can run this offense perfectly. And how he connects with Ricky Pearsall now as his number one wide receiver, I think he's probably going to move to that number one role. We've got Juwan Jennings, who is now looking like he's fit for week one, where it was a little touch and go there going back a week or
I
so.
think I think his fitness may have had to do with his contract as well.
Yeah, I've got a little contract hamstring or something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
Oh look,
they,
you've redone my contract. It's gone. It's all better
they
now.
worked that out. I think, what did we? It was like 3 million for this year, a 3 million
Yeah.
bonus this year, and then so they'll be in the same position next off season, whether they
Hmm.
extend him or not. If what he was asking for or reported to be asking for is true, then see ya. He'll be on another team next year, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a story for another day. But yeah, these two are always exciting to watch. It's always good games between them, obviously, the division rivals. Seattle are the outsiders at $2.01, the 49ers at $1.84. It's in Seattle. I'm with the injuries that the 49ers have and the doubts around CMC, and if he can take that full workload, I'm surprised it's not a little bit closer than that. But time will tell, I guess. I think this one will be a defensive game, so that over-under of 43.5, I'm not 100% convinced that they'll go over that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 21-20 type of game, 21-18 or something. So we'll see how that plays out. Seattle plus 1.5, 49ers minus 1.5. It's tough to sort of get a judge on the line there of what the margin's going to be. But what a big thing for Seattle will be is how Sam Darnold looks. Will we get
Yeah.
the Sam Darnold of basically all of last regular season, where he looked incredible? Or do we get the playoff Sam Darnold where it looked like New York Jets Sam Darnold and he just
I
looked
think
lost?
I think that's the reason why the line is what it is, and they're not the favourites because they're thinking it's a different Sam Darnold with Kevin O'Connell than it is with Mike McDonald, and I think they're also looking at it going, look at Minnesota's receivers that he had, and it was Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and you look at now it's Jackson Smith and Jigba, and
Probably had the Cooper Cup or the ghost of Cooper Cup. We'll see what
yeah,
he is.
and I think I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem. Everyone is expecting and thinking that the Cooper Cup is the guy who played with the Rams last year, who's past his prime. Sometimes when he was out there, you didn't even realize he was out there because of the way that the Rams offense was run, and they're sort of maybe expecting that he'll be in and out of that lineup with injuries. But yeah, I would be me personally. I'd be going with the 49ers in this one.
Yeah, I've tipped 49ers in this. I would not sort of be comfortable either way on the line there, but yeah, it's going to be close. The biggest matchup I think to watch in this is the Seattle run game against the 49ers run defense. Kenneth
Mm,
Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We know the 49ers run defense can be elite. So can they take a lot of the pressure off the Sam Darnold and help him out in that way? So yeah, looking forward to see how this plays out. Looking forward to seeing how Sam Darnold goes in Seattle. And 49ers, they're just the 49ers. Expect a big game from George Kittle.
yeah. My game that I picked here that I'll also be interested in watching is the Houston Texans at the LA Rams. This could be an absolute barn burner game to watch, or it could be a defensive masterpiece. You'll never know. But Rams are $1.59 favorites. Texans are $2.44. Over under is 43.5. Rams are -3.5 favorites. So the reason why I'm not super confident, like I think if everything was healthy, I think the Rams win this one pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but comfortably. All right, it's a comfortable win for them. The question is, how healthy is Matt Stafford with his back? Now, he's had to get an epidural in his back. Now, usually you only hear the words epidural when it's a woman giving birth. That's usually the only time you hear that word. So to hear it for a quarterback needing it because of a back injury is a little concerning. But that defense, I actually think here, this is a game where you are going to see maybe two people who are in that contention within the next couple of years, if not this year, of that defensive player of the year in Jared Verse and Will Anderson Jr. So one on each side of the ball. And you wouldn't shock me to see these guys in that discussion for the next 5 to 10 years, sort of, because that's how good these guys are. Devontae Adams coming in is huge from what Cooper Cup was last year to what Devontae played like and the talent that he has and what Sean McVay is going to do with him. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gels with this team. I think the trouble that the Texans are going to have is they've got a great secondary when you look at that team with Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley Jr., all of that, and D'Amico Ryans as the great defensive head coach. But Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua are different beasts compared to most other teams, what these guys will have to face. So I also think their other big thing too is just the injuries that the Texans have had to go through. Joe Mixon with his ankle/foot, like I don't know if we'll see him this season. He might not play for the entire season. So then you're starting running backs. You've got Nick Chubb coming off of a horrific injury. And then you've got Damian Pierce, who last year it looked like they were making him the third or fourth or fifth string running back the way that the season was playing out. Then you look at the wide receivers, you've got Nico Collins, who is a star, but has had a few soft tissue injuries in his career. And then Christian Kirk, one of their guys that they got in the off season, he's out with a hamstring injury. So you then breaking it down, you've got two rookies stepping in to try and fill those shoes. It's not going to be an easy task for them. So,
No.
but I just like both of these teams watching them, and I think this could be a very very fun, interesting game to watch.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch how CJ Stroud bounces back after last year. He was average, I guess, last year compared to what was expected of him, especially after the way he was in his rookie year. What sort of season do we get out of him? We all know he can be an absolute superstar in this league, but can he put it together? What are we going to get out of him? And with those injuries, like you said, there's even more pressure on him now. So, yeah, as long as Stafford is out there this game, I'm favouring them. But the minute Stafford goes down, or if he goes down during the game with that back, because it could flare up at any time, we don't know. So if he misses any time during the game, then it puts the Texans right back in it. But yeah, I'm not going past the Rams in this one.
And the problem with the back injury is no one ever used to have a bad back. If you've got a bad back, it stays with you for life, and that's coming from someone who's got a bad back. So it's one of those things that you never used to have a back injury,
Yeah,
and it's always going to be a worry with Matt Stafford for this
especially
season,
not when what's Stafford's 37 now.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, as a near 43-year-old, a bad back's a bad back. Like,
Well, as I was going to say, as a guy who is turning 37 this year in another month or so, a bad back is horrible on the best of days, let alone when you've got
we might
Will
not be
Anderson Jr.
world-class
coming at you.
athletes. We might not be world-class athletes, and we might not have all the bells and whistles that these guys can have, but a back injury is a back injury. It doesn't matter who you are. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see how it plays out this year. I hope he can get through the year fully healthy, but it's going to be something that has to be monitored every week and could really affect him week to week within the games as well. So we'll see how it goes.
So we'll get on to our last two games. We'll try and breeze through these ones a little bit quicker before we get on to our bets. Sunday night football, maybe the game. This could actually go down. This is going to sound weird saying the game of the season already, but this could be one of the most fun and interesting games of the whole season. The Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. The Ravens are $1.87 favourites to the Bills $1.97. The over-under for this is 50.5. And the Ravens are minus 0.5 point favorites. You might as well just have it as a pick 'em. Like, that's just ridiculous having that's the why you sit on the fence there, minus half a point.
Yeah,
It's obviously the showdown of the last two MVPs. Josh Allen with a almost no name type of receiving crew versus the Baltimore Ravens and the just complete football factory who just never seem to be able to get over that hump at the end of the season, which is pretty much like the Bills, if I'm
games. Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Um, this one I am over the moon to watch, and I cannot wait to watch these two guys go at it. And just the the defense, the offense, just the plays that could come from this. I am really quite excited. I reckon this is going to be maybe the best game of the season.
If there's some sort of weather delay or something in this game that pushes it back, like the finish time back, I am going to lose my mind because this game should finish about 20 minutes or so before I have to go to work.
Mhm.
I am hoping that nothing happens in this game other than fireworks of offensive touchdowns because I'll show up to work late. I don't care. I'm watching this entire game because this one I would expect is going down to the wire. This could be a final play and the team wins, and it could be either team. I genuinely don't know who's going to win this game, and I don't think anyone could tip either side and be completely comfortable in that conviction of going, oh, they're 100% going to win.
Mm.
That's the game this is, and that's what we love as fans. So I am so excited. Week one, we can get a bit up and down on week one. We don't really know what we're going to get, but I'd expect these two teams to come out firing from the get go. And yeah, like you said, this could be one of the games of the entire season.
Yeah, I am just going to go the Baltimore side on this one, to
I'm
be
going to have a
honest. I think
look
the Ravens are
because
going to.
I genuinely don't know who I've tipped. So give me 2 seconds.
I think, I just think the Ravens. I love Josh and what he's been able to do with the Bills. I'm just more concerned with the how do you stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
And I just feel like the way that the last couple seasons have ended, I wouldn't be shocked if this is the year for Baltimore where they do make it over that hump and get into that Super Bowl.
I think this will be a big Mark Andrews game as well after that
Yeah.
devastating shot from him last year. But The Bills, if you watched last week, the Bills are my Super Bowl pick. I've got them winning
Yeah.
it all. And I've got them winning this game, I think, based solely on the fact that it's at home. And
Mm.
Josh Allen, and get the season off to a big start at home. But again, I genuinely no conviction in my tip at all. It could be either team. It could come down to who has the ball last, which we've seen in the
Mm.
playoffs with the teams a lot as well. So, yeah, as a fan of NFL, but I'm a fan of both these teams, but they're not my teams. This
Mm.
is a sort of sit back and just watch wire to wire. So, fun times.
Fun times. Well, Monday Night Football is another game where the betting agencies have sat on the fence. The Vikings are at Chicago here. The Minnesota Vikings are $1.87 favourites to the Bears $1.97. Over under is 43.5, and the Vikings once again are minus -0.5 of a point favourite. So the 0.5 thing is back. I understand the skepticism around JJ McCarthy starting, as we mentioned sort of last week. You were a fan of him coming out of the draft. I was not. I think there is no guarantee that Kevin O'Connell is going to be able to get him to pull off the same type of season that they had last year with Sam Darnold. I know this is going to sound weird, but like Sam Darnold at least had seasons of seeing these defenses and getting out and playing real live games against these types of defenses. So he'd had his time in the NFL. He spent a year with Kyle Shanahan, not really doing like just being the backup to the Brock Purdy experience, and then going to Minnesota from there. So he's done his time. I don't know whether JJ McCarthy will be able to do that as well. No Jordan Addison. They bring in Adam Thielen, obviously from Carolina. That's going to be interesting. But obviously, the big question from the Chicago side, the two big questions: how does Caleb Williams look, and what is Ben Johnson like as a coach? Because we've seen many guys who are offensive coordinators who step into the head coaching role, and it just gets a little bit much for them when they've got to make all the decisions. And I'm not saying that these guys are on the same level as Ben Johnson, but you think of what Nathaniel Hackett was like in Denver. He was one season and done. You know, when he came back, Frank Reich in his 1 year back at Carolina, like with Carolina, he was done before the season ended. He was sort of viewed at previously as an offensive guru type of player. So it's just gonna be one of those things. They're the two big questions. I'm sort of a bit the same. Like I don't know how this way is going to go. I really struggle to pick how these two teams are going to end up. If I was going to pick, I would probably go Chicago just based on that it's home, but it's going to be difficult. Caleb Williams versus that Brian Flores defense is just not going to be a fun time for him.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that Ben Johnson has to do this game is get Caleb focusing on getting the ball out of there quick.
Yeah.
Because watch Caleb Williams play, and he is holding the ball way too long, running around, trying to make something happen. And you just can't do that against a Brian Flores defense. So, to me, to start off with for the season, I think that's Ben Johnson's biggest challenge, to be honest. We've
Mm.
seen Caleb flash really good play, and we've seen him flash absolutely poor play. So, what we get out of him in this offense will be a key factor. What we get out of JJ McCarthy in his first start in the NFL, I think the biggest thing for him going in his favour with his first start was that he had all of last season to be able to get into the playbook, get comfortable with the offense as well. Now it's just got to be put out on the field when it matters. So I would expect the Vikings, no Jordan Addison, they've still got obviously second best wide receiver in the game in Jefferson. I would
Mm.
expect a heavy run game this week from Minnesota with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And I would expect them to take a lot of the pressure off JJ McCarthy for his first start. So for the Bears, I'd be looking to stop the run game and put all the pressure on JJ McCarthy. But we've seen it in college, he's a winner. He doesn't need to put up massive stats to be a winner. So I think he'll fit comfortably in this offense. And as a Packers fan, I hope I'm absolutely wrong on him, and I hope he's a bust. And I hope Caleb Williams is one of the worst ever number one picks overall. But I just don't see those two things happening. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think the Bears will be, I guess, as bad as they were last year. I think they'll make improvements. And I don't think the Vikings will have the type of season that they had last year. It just seemed like
Mm.
everything was right for the Vikings last year until the playoffs, whereas it sort of reverts back to the mean a little bit with some close games and I guess turnovers and that sort of thing. So, yeah, interesting one to watch this. Surprised it's a Monday night game, just not knowing what we're going to get out of both teams, but I guess it kind of makes sense as well. Big divisional game. So, yeah, it's
Mm.
an interesting one to watch just to see how both offenses play out. So, I have tipped the Vikings in this one just because I have faith in JJ McCarthy being a winner and that Brian Flores defense against Caleb Williams is going to be a massacre and they're going to sack him probably 7 times, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised.
Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all. So there our look at there are our keys to kick off for some of these games. We're now going to head on to our betting segment, the lines of scrimmage. Lines of scrimmage now. Both Dan and I are 0-2 on the week. Our Chiefs bet was done within the first three plays with Xavier Worthy going out, as we both had him in there, and then the first game of the season, I think I was tracking pretty well until the fact that, Jalen Hurts sort of forgot that he could throw the ball to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. So, they didn't hit their props and Jalen didn't hit his throwing one. But yeah, we're both 0 2 here. So we've got ones here now. These are scattered over um different games and we've got different ones there. So I'll just go with my quick one first, and just because it's like a leg less than yours. So I've got 4 legs here. So I've got Jamar Chase anytime touchdown is $1.83, and a Jameer Gibbs anytime touchdown is $1.89. I've gone with both of those guys just to try and score. Nothing too outlandish there with those. And then I've paired that with Amon-Ra St. Brown over 66.5 yards at $1.87. That's his over under for yards. It feels like that Amon-Ra gets that in his sleep. Like I know, and as you said, as you were sort of mentioning with the Packers secondary, you've got some great safeties, but the corners aren't the we've got the greatest corners. We've got Pat Surtains, that type of thing. Like, there's some good corners, but they're not fantastic. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Amon-Ra get 70, 80, 90 yards in this game. It'll just
He's such
be,
a tough wide receiver to match on, no matter who your cornerback is.
yeah. And he seems like the type of guy who Jared Goff might target him 12 times and he might have 10 catches and he ends up with 75 yards. And that wouldn't shock me at all. So I went with that. And then my last one is Trey McBride over 63.5 yards is $1.87. Trey McBride last year, I think he averaged 68.5, like overall for the season, 68.5 yards per game for the season, or maybe slightly more. So I sort of went with just those 4. So that gives me an $11.29 payout, which for me, I have a $5 bet, which will be our $5 bet for the season. So that's 1 unit for me. So that would be a $5 bet give me a payout of $56.46 on that one, which I'd be quite happy to walk away from for this week with a $56 payout off of $5.
Yeah, we need to get the ball rolling, especially after the first 2 games. So that's a
Mm.
good one there. I hope it fails straight off the bat, but it's pretty good looking, to be honest. So it's hard to see any of those failing at the moment. So hopefully it gets your season off to a good start to make up for the first 2 games.
It would be nice. It would be nice.
We'll give you the Gibbs touchdown as a junk time touchdown when they get blown out by 20.
At the end of the day, I don't care if it's the first touchdown of the game or the last touchdown and they're down by 75. As long as he gets the touchdown, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter when they come, as long as they do, and as long as it's in a
Exactly.
Lions loss to the Packers.
Exactly. That's all I care about. What's yours? What have you got?
So I've gone with something that gives us decent odds here, and I haven't gone too crazy overall with it. So I've gone Jaden Daniels 2+ passing touchdowns against the Giants at $1.83. I'm expecting a big season by him. I did have him as anytime touchdown scorer, so that's a rushing touchdown, which also would not surprise me at all. That was paying something like $2.90 or something, I think it was, which to me seems
Mm,
insane. So I'm probably looking at
yeah.
that as a single instead of in this multi. But yeah, 2+ touchdowns to me seems like pretty good lock. We spoke about Devontae Adams in the Rams preview game. I've got him over 60 yards receiving at $1.97. Like I'm expecting him to have 5+ catches in this game, yeah? So
Yeah.
6 yards should be a walk in the park if he does that. So
Mm,
$1.97 is way too juicy to me for me to pass up there. And then I'm expecting the Rams to put up points. So Stafford's going to have his touchdowns, 2 or 3 in the game. Devontae Adams, $2.55 for an anytime touchdown. Give me that every single time, especially
yeah.
with week one with Stafford wanting to target him, get him going in the offense. Yeah. Who do you match up with, like Derek Stingley Jr.? Who's he going to take in the red zone? Because do you put him on
Yeah.
Puka Nacua and then you've got
Yeah,
Devontae
exactly.
on the outside, or do you put him on Adams? You got Puka. Like it's just how do you match up with this Rams team at the moment with those two wide receivers? So the Rams getting down in the red zone would not shock me if Devontae Adams is wide open at some point for Matthew Stafford and he just lines him up. So $2.55, insane value. Now I've gone a little interesting with the last two. I've got a 5-leg multi here, so a little bit interesting with the last two. The Saints versus the Cardinals in who the hell knows what we're getting out of this game. But the
Yeah.
over-under for this game is 42.5 points. Now, Spencer Rattler is your starting quarterback for the Saints. I'm not expecting him to put up more than 14 points in this game.
Mm,
So, are we going to get a offensive explosion by the Cardinals against this team? We could,
maybe.
but we also know that Kyler Murray can be extremely inconsistent as well. So, this one I don't see being high scoring, and I'm looking at it to be a 27-14 type game. So I'm going under 42.5 at $1.96 in this one. And then I couldn't help myself on this. I had to put it in there. Micah Parsons sack, $1.67. Give it to us. You know he's going to be out there trying to make that statement after such a massive trade and everything in the off season. And if he's on a snap count, he's just going to be firing towards the quarterback every chance he gets. So $1.67 from Micah Parsons sack, I will be all over that. So
Mm,
5-leg multi, $20.36 for each dollar outlaid. So again, we put $5 on that, and it will pay out at 101 and some change. So I can see maybe the only one that could challenge me on this is the Saints Cardinals under, but week one, both teams not in a rhythm. Saints not an explosive offense with Spencer Rattler there. Yeah,
mm.
I'm fairly confident on this. This is my best bet. So
The other
put it
the
together.
other thing
Hopefully,
you could do the other thing you could do with that is you could ramp up the over under and put the under, but do an alternate under and put it up to say like 48.5, which will obviously lower the odds significantly,
yeah,
but you're still probably looking at like 16, $17. still
Yeah.
odds. Like if
Thanks for
you weren't sure, that is still an option to go ahead with. I'd say too.
Yeah, oh, definitely as well. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Get our season off better than what the first two games did, but yeah, this way
I don't.
we're doing it over all the games. Just gives you that option to spread it out a little bit and not focus so much on trying to get good value in one single game, which can
Yeah,
anything can happen.
and
And today, Xavier Worthy injury early on and blows everything out the water.
yeah, exactly. But I like, based off of if everyone were to stay healthy and how these games play out the way we're expecting them to. Like I like that one as well. I might have to borrow that and chuck a unit or two on that as well. I don't think you did one, but I did an absolute Hail Mary long shot type
Oh,
of
you've
type
tried
here.
to
But I just
retirement after week one here. This is what you've
well, no,
done.
what it actually was is I went through the games and I picked out all the ones that I liked, like the ones that I would bet, and then I just took the couple which I was the most confident in, and that's where I made my first multi. But I had all of these on my list that I really was looking at. And I was like, I really kind of like these. I'm not sure which ones I want to use. I've left some of them out for certain reasons, but then when you actually put them all together with what my original thought was, it came to this payout. So what I had is obviously those first four that I said: Trey McBride over 63.5 yards, Jamar Chase and Jameer Gibbs anytime touchdowns, and Amon-Ra St. Brown over 66.5 yards. I then added a Chuba Hubbard anytime touchdown and a Tedero McMillan anytime touchdown. I then also added a Josh Allen anytime rushing touchdown or receiving if they decide to run like a Philly special, and you have Josh Palmer throw to Josh Allen wide open in the end zone. Then I also added Lamar Jackson 2 passing touchdowns, which was $1.72. I was looking at all of these and I sort of like if you look at that, because you can obviously see where I've put these down here, Dan, so you can see what I've written. You could see my reasoning behind picking every single one of these as a
Yeah,
as a tip. Like you could see all of this happening over a weekend.
yeah, 100%.
So when I actually put all of that together, it gave me the odds of $201.57 for every dollar you put on. So if you did put $5 on, your payout would be $1,007 and some change. Will I put money on this? Maybe I'd put $1 on just because the odds, but I could. It was one of those things. Like I said, I went through all of the games, picked out all of my favorite props from the games that I was confident in. So there was obviously some games that I wasn't 100% confident in some of these things, but I picked all of these and I went, I could see every single one of these happening. So it is sort of tempting for me to go and add this all in and then maybe chuck $1 or two on it here or there just to see what happens. But
Even if you
it
put a
was just
dollar,
something.
$200 just off something. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
worth having a
like I said, this is my absolute long shot bet. So just for anyone listening who is a degenerate and would like to throw $1 on this as well, because you never know what could happen. I'll recap it again. So anytime touchdown scorers for Chuba Hubbard, Tedero McMillan, Jamar Chase, Jameer Gibbs, and Josh Allen. Trey McBride over 63.5 receiving yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown over 66.5 receiving yards. And Lamar Jackson 2 passing touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, $1 for 200. Well, I've actually, what I'll end up using, I am going to do this because I realized I was just having a look at the account before just to see if these odds were still what they were. And I've actually got a bonus bet from a long shot that I did that missed out by one in the Philly game, which was the AJ Brown one that didn't hit. So I've got a long shot there. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to
yeah.
chuck that on
Whenever
there and
you,
see what I
whenever
get.
you put a bonus bet in your account, you're thinking one of two ways. Depending on how much the actual bonus bet value is, you
Mm,
either put it on something you know absolutely is locked to win. So it might be a single leg bet sort of thing, just to double your
yeah,
money, maybe, or just to get something back. Or if it's like a $5 bonus, but $10 bonus bet, whatever, you're going to go, okay, sweet, whatever. We're going to
mm,
chuck it on something that is so out there odds-wise
Outlandish.
that you think is going to come together like this does, and just hope for the best. And if it doesn't pay out, then oh well, right, we had a shot. But if it does pay out, you're friggin' laughing.
Well, and the thing is, I remember seeing the video last year. I don't know if you saw this. There was a guy on Christmas Day in the States who put
Oh,
a like the $5 or $10 bet, whatever it was, or it might have been $20. I can't remember what it was, but on 15 different touchdown scores over the Christmas, or 16, and every single one of them hit, and he got paid out $489,000. So
yeah,
there
let's
are, you know, the odds of something like that happening are obviously extreme, but I'm not too opposed to give it a shot. So for that dollar there,
especially
why not?
this on paper, this looks good. Like you can't
Yeah,
argue against any of it. So let's run with it and see how we go.
exactly. So that is the show for tonight. Dan, have you got anything that you would like to add before we get out of here?
I think after the first two games so far, we haven't really seen that offensive explosion like we did in the first half of the Philly and Cowboys game, and then that died off completely. So I'm hoping for some major offensive fireworks on the slate when we get to it on, well, Monday morning for us. Let's wake up
Mm,
early and get some excitement going to start our week, and hopefully we see some really good games.
hopefully. Now, if you have stayed with us this whole time, thank you very much for joining. Please comment below. Please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. We'll get this out on Spotify and all of those as soon as we can. That would be great if you were able to jump in and do that as well. Give us your feedback. So what are some of your bets that you may like? What's your some thoughts on who may win these games? Anything that you send back to us, Dan and I will be reading. Would love to hear it and love to get your feedback and what you're thinking. We'd like to try and build this as a nice little community between us all that we can have these types of conversations and have a bit of fun. If you are looking for fantasy football advice, please go over to the Optimus Fantasy YouTube channel or optimusfantasy.com. There are some new slate of tools that have just come out, which I was lucky enough to have a bit of a play around in the lead up while they were doing all the beta testing, which obviously we're allowed to do because we work for Optimus. It's some great stuff there. You guys will be blown away by some of the work that Nate has done and the guys have done on that back end there. So please go and jump in from there. Have a look. Go get all your start sit advice, your fantasy advice from those guys. Some awesome people over there that and Nate's been doing a great job with that and pumping out as much content as possible there. So Dan, I will get you to get us out of here for tonight. Thank you for joining again, mate. And it's so great that we've got football back.
It is, mate. I'm glad you made it through the entire show feeling under the weather. So you can have a rest now.
I'm
And
I'm sweating bullets at the moment. I am so hot, and I'm sitting there. I'm struggling. I am struggling, but we got there.
we didn't plan on going this long, but when you and I get chatting, it's hard to stop us. So we'll get you out of here and you can go to bed and sleep it off, and hopefully you wake up in the morning feeling good. But for everyone else
Oh,
who has
sorry, before you get out of there, all of the Aussies that are watching, happy Father's Day too. Had to get that one in before we got out of here.
enjoy whenever you're listening to this. But yeah, we'll get you out of here, Brad. You can go to bed and try and rest up and sweat it out
Thanks,
of
mate.
you. But for everyone else who has stuck with us and watched, thank you for tuning into the Optimus NFL show, your ultimate destination, transforming the way you watch the game. From Brad and myself, we are so happy to be back. We'll be back next week. We will try and do as much content as we can at any point that we can and get it out on the YouTube channels and elsewhere. Also, follow us on Twitter and just anywhere else. We'll put it out there as well. But enjoy listening. Let us know what you're feeling. And Brad, good to be chatting with you again.
You too, mate. We'll see you all next week, everyone. Bye for now.